Thank you. It's so good to have all of you here. We want to welcome you here, all of you who are online. I'm Reverend Tim Lytle, Senior Minister here at Unity Church of Hawaii. And no, I don't dress this way every Sunday, although I might. Some people are asking me, why are you dressed this way? Can you explain what's going on? Well, the feast day of St. Francis is on Tuesday, October 4th, and St. Francis is the patron saint of ecology, of living creatures, of our world, okay? So, and we're talking today about thy will be done where? On earth, as it is in heaven. So many times I hear about the world being such a mess and so fallen and so messed up that people just put their faith on getting out of here. But Jesus taught us to pray in the Sermon on the Mount, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In other words, we have a redemptive purpose for being here. We're not here to just be spectators. We're not here to just leave as fast as we possibly can. We are here to be a positive, beneficial difference and presence in this world. And that is half of our mission statement. That we are here to assist in transformation and to be a positive difference in this world. Jesus taught us this. We didn't think of this on our own, and people were teaching it long before Jesus. We're here for a reason. We're here for a purpose. You may be looking for your purpose. Your purpose is already here. Your purpose is to be that radiant presence of God here on this planet, here with one another. To bring that alignment, that presence that God is into everyday life. To be a practical mystic. Unity really has a strong streak of mysticism in it. And we're here to be practical mystics. That is, how do we practice that in the world, in our everyday interactions with others, including with ourselves? I don't know about you, but with me, I have a lot of interactions with myself. And sometimes I'm like, why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? When will you learn to do this and this better? Do you have that inner voice? Do any of you? I do. You do. All right. A number of you do. Now, some of you may have learned to disconnect that voice. I think there can be some value in that voice, but to channel it in a positive way and to say, yes, I hear you. And I love you. Speaking to myself. I love you just the way you are. And I know that you're getting better. And I want to say that to you. I love you. And I know that you are the presence of God just as you are. Whether you are online or whether you are here in person. Okay, introverts, just take a deep breath. I'd like you to turn to the person sitting next to you. Hopefully it's someone that you can speak to. And repeat after me. I love you. I love you just the way you are. You are the face of God. All right. Now, can you just feel that? Can you just let that in? So today, we're celebrating several things. Today is Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. And so today is the International Day of Nonviolence. Now, I'm like, let's make it more than one day, okay? But it's a day to celebrate the idea, the principles of living in harmony, living a life of nonviolence. Now you might say, well, I don't practice violence. I didn't beat anybody up this week. Well, let me think about it. No, I didn't beat anybody up this week. I didn't but I think about some of the thoughts that come up in us, or some of the actions or behaviors, or some of the words sometimes have this feel of violence to them. Sometimes we get upset with somebody or with something, and we come across strong because we think, if I don't come across strong, then they're going to walk all over me, so I got to get on top of it before they do. And we start playing this game that escalates into a conflict, right? And we see this happen all over the world. I am real grateful that I do shadow work on myself. The quantum living process has been extremely helpful for me. That's a practice we encourage here in terms of dealing with our own shadow and then looking at who am I here to be. I do other ways of addressing my shadow side. So when my shadow side pops up, it doesn't take over. Yeah, it's riding in the car. It's part of me. It's like when my son was 3 years old, riding in the car with me. Yeah, he's riding in the car, but no, he's not going to take over the steering wheel. In the same way, our shadow doesn't need to be in charge of how we live life. Our shadow side may be that side that is fearful of others, fearful of life itself, fearful of what's going to happen in my life. We can evolve beyond that. There are actually stages of development. Did you know that? We're developing. Did you know we're growing up? Now, some people wonder about me, but yes. Yes, we can grow, we can develop. And as we move through these stages of development, we can look at ourselves honestly and be appreciative and love ourselves. And we're looking at, the life of St. Francis today. We're going to have a blessing of our animal companions today. Now, you may not have brought your animal companion with you. You may not have brought your fish or your turtle or your gecko lizard. Just go out here and grab one. Your dog, your cat, I don't know. Horse, in Kansas, I would bless horses. So I don't know what you brought, but you may have a picture on your phone, and so you can be a part of this blessing down here in the courtyard following the service today, and we will do a blessing of all of our animal companions, because we know that we are all really one, and that's what St. Francis taught. St. Francis lived in the 1200s. Imagine in the 1200s preaching and teaching and living this principle, that we are all one, that every animal, every experience, everything that exists is my brother or my sister. Imagine actually living that way and teaching others to do so. That's what St. Francis did. He lived that we are all one. I want to share with you a quote from a pretty famous person. A human being is part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. Now, pardon the masculine language. This was written back in the day. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as something separate from the rest. Do you believe you're separate? Do you believe that you're separate from everyone else? Do you believe you're separate from the world? As long as you believe that you're separate, you can do harm to another, because it's not you that you're hurting. But when you recognize that you're hurting yourself, wow, everything changes up, including animals, plants. Okay. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest. A kind of optical illusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Who do you think wrote that? Any guesses? Sounds like St. Francis, doesn't it? It was Albert Einstein. He saw through his studies the interconnectedness of all things, the interconnectedness of all life, that we are all this life living itself. And you can call this life, this livingness. Now, Paul Tillich, a theologian from years ago, called this the ground of being. Say that together. Ground of being. The ground of being, simply stated, is that God is this presence, this beingness, living as each and every one of us, living as the presence of each animal, living as the presence of each plant, living as the presence of every stone and rock. And I'm getting more and more in tune with that, so that I'm seeing God everywhere I go. God shows up in all sorts of ways. As a lizard, as a plant, as a rock, as a person, God shows up in all ways. And when I know that I am that self-livingness of that presence that we call God, as Paul said in Acts chapter 17, in God we live, move, and have our being. When I know that I am the expression of this presence, that this is the ground of our being, that each of us is the beingness of God. What else could we be? Right? I mean, if we believe, if we accept the idea that God is everywhere fully present, I know, ring the alarm. This is important stuff. When we accept and know, and yeah, we'll identify that, so it's okay. When we identify and know that we are that presence, that self-livingness of God, that we are that being, that beingness of God, then there is no more separation. There is no more separation. So when I look at you, there is no more separation. That's joyful, and it's also sad. Because sometimes I see people going through very difficult times. When I see what's going on in Ukraine, is not just some far away place that I watch on TV and please pass the salt and pepper while I eat. I recognize that these people are me. When I see our military out fighting and putting themselves in danger, I recognize these people are me. For myself, when I see an animal being harmed, I realize this animal is me. That made radical changes in my life. Radical changes. To see every animal, every living thing as this presence, to see it radiating with life. One time in Wichita, Kansas, we had a Sufi master come and lead a workshop with us, and he did these exercises with us. And Sufis are very much into experiencing the presence of God in all, that Allah is all, that there's only one power, one presence. Sounds familiar, right? And so he led us in this workshop, and wow, I just felt all this shifting and changing going on inside of me. And as I was driving home that day, now this is just my experience, you can take it for what it's worth. I could see through trees, and they were just luminescent, like green and violet, and it's like, whoa, should I be driving? I hadn't taken anything, I swear. And I saw every tree and everything just radiating this presence. Have we forgotten who we are? Have we forgotten where we are? Have we forgotten that everything radiates with this presence that is God? I mean, the implications of this are vast. I'm still working through it. That if I engage in a practice that puts another person at a disadvantage, whoa, I really need to look at that. When I engage in a practice that is harmful to another animal, whoa, I need to look at that. When I am, okay, so I'm just sharing this, right? We're all on the journey. You may not, and you may disagree with some of these things, but hey, I mean, this principle is that all of life is life. All of life is the life that is God. All of this life is beingness of God. So for me, it's painful if I see strip mining. Now I recognize that it's important to get minerals and so forth, so I try to work through it. But when I see beautiful, pristine country, and then I just see this strip mining, taking all this stuff out of the earth and taking off the trees, I'm like, I have to just take a deep breath. When we recognize that we're part of all, then we begin to live consciously. Now you might say, that's not practical, Reverend Tim. If I lived that way, then I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I do. Yeah, that's part of transformation. A lot of times people have come to me in counseling, and they're like, Reverend Tim, I need things to change in my life. And I ask them, well, are you willing to make some changes? Isn't there a way to do it without me changing something? Right? Can't we just anesthetize all the people that are problematic in our lives? Can't we just somehow take some magic pill and wake up from this? I mean, no, we got to do the inner work. If we want to see change in our world, if we want to see nonviolence in our world, if we want to see ethical treatment of animals, if we want to see ethical treatment of all people of all nationalities, all colors, all races, then we need to see that we are all the self-livingness of God. Now, some of my more atheistic friends might say, well, religion has taught over the years that they supported slavery. They supported the oppression of women. They supported, all kinds of atrocious things. Well, fortunately, we're growing up, right? And if our understanding is that God is this beingness that we are, that we're all interconnected, then it takes out this need to try to dominate, colonize, control, and destroy others. Ever heard of Mechthild of Magdeburg? All right, not a common household name for you. All right, Mechthild of Magdeburg lived around the same time as St. Francis in the 1200s. She was part of a group called the Beguines, Beguines, the Beguines. The Beguines kind of came out of France and Italy, and the Beguines were a group of women. They were a women's movement in the 1200s. Women that lived together, worked together. They weren't nuns, but they lived together, worked together to minister to the poor, to try to live the gospel as they understood it, that Jesus lived and taught. And they would have, some of them, these ecstatic visions of oneness, for which they got in lots of trouble with the Catholic Church. But they saw this presence of God as being everywhere, being all things. And so Mechthild of Magdeburg said, "The truly wise person kneels at the feet of all creatures and is not afraid to endure the mockery of others." They saw the presence of God in all things. So as we do our animal blessing today, it's not just a cute thing that I'm doing. I am blessing God. Now that sounds audacious. That each of these animal companions are actually that presence of God in your life, just as you are the presence of God to them. And we are that presence to one another. So those of you who are online, I don't know if you have your animal companion there with you. Maybe they're snuggling with you. If you're like some people I know, your cat might be right in front of the monitor. And we bless, and all of you can hold your hands up to these cameras. We bless your animal companion. We bless those animals that are in your life. We bless you to know that you will care for them in compassion and in love. And we bless them with long life and happiness. We bless all of our earth and all of our planet and all living beings, knowing that all of them are sentient beings worthy of respect, worthy of protection. We bless you, and we bless your animal companions. And for those animals that have passed, all animals who have passed, all animals and our animal companions who have passed, we light this candle as a symbol of their presence in our lives. I'm thinking of my dog, Humbug. Humbug was with me in some of the hardest times of my life. Humbug could read my mood, could read what was going on with me. She was an Australian shepherd, had one bright blue eye and one dark brown eye. Very smart. She'd come into a room, she just knew how I was feeling, what I was doing. So if I was upset, she wouldn't say a word. She would just walk up and lay down beside me and just look up at me. She became my spiritual director. A spiritual director is someone that, works with you to help unfold your spiritual journey. And so as I was going through some of these traumatic experiences in my life, Humbug was there with me, and I could tell Humbug anything. And she would never break confidentiality. I miss her. And maybe there are some animal companions that you have had that you miss. And we just bless those animals, and we bless their place in our lives, knowing that we are all interconnected and that they are the radiant presence of God as well. And so they never cease to be. And we know with all animal life and all plant life, oneness, protection, and blessing. And so I invite you to take a deep breath as we go into a time of meditation. And feel that radiant presence of God living in, through, and as you. Know that who you are is the radiant presence that is God. That you are the beingness of God. You are this ground of being. That we share this with all life. So any animal, any plant, anything, we know and recognize our oneness. We give thanks, Spirit, for this connection, this interconnection, this oneness that we all are, this oneness of God, this oneness of life, of love. And we open ourselves to see that radiant presence that is God in every living thing this day. Let us go into a minute of silence as we ground into the ground of being. We recognize that this presence, this beingness of God, is the way in which we bring heaven to earth. That we are this radiance, this presence of God, the presence of light, the presence of heaven here on earth. So we can truly say, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.